Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your World Cup Daily. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Glad it didn't go to extra time in the end.
Yeah, it was an enthralling second game. But let's start with the first game of the day. Netherlands 3, USA 1. Memphis Depay scores after 10 minutes. That goal, to me, Tyler Adams just didn't switch on defensively early in the game, and he got drawn to the ball and lost track of where Memphis was. Memphis arrives on the edge of the box and finishes with, a bit of the normal gusto we expect from him. On 45 minutes, just before half-time, it's another simple ball across the box by Denzel Dumfries. And Serginho Dest is fast asleep, allows Daley Blind to come in from left wing back, and he strikes home. It's 2-0. Haji Wright got the US back into the game with what can only really be described as a fluke. I don't think there's any intention for him to do what it was he did, cutting home Pulisic's ball. But then Dumfries made it 3-1 on 81 minutes. Again, it's really, really poor defending. Anthony Robinson decides he's playing centre-back, moves infield, starts wrestling with one of the Dutch forwards, leaves Dumfries in acres of space, ball is switched across to him, and he finishes to wrap the game up. I thought the Dutch were quite pedestrian. The US looked like a tired team to me, and I thought they let themselves down with poor defensive lapses.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think all three of the goals were pretty much the same in that, as you described Tyler Adams there at the beginning, it was not concentrating, not switching on, not making sure that your man is your man, and kind of just passing on people to others and assuming it'll be taken care of. I thought USA were pretty poor, to be honest, in the first half, especially. Maybe came to life a little bit more, but first half, the passing was so safe. It was so bland. There were no runners and no movement ahead. Everybody kept going back to the centre-backs because that's where Netherlands were pushing them back. It was all very, very easy for the Dutch to defend. I think Van Gaal was particularly quietly scathing of Greg Berhalter and the USA coaching approach, to be perfectly honest, after the match. It was too easy. That's the brutal truth of it. It was, I thought Greg Berhalter had a bit of cheek, to be honest, saying that they were all over Netherlands at the time of the first goal, considering there was like 7 minutes on the clock. It was fairly ridiculous to suggest that it was against the run of play because of that. It was easy. That's all I can really say. It was a tactical plan which the other team did nothing to avoid, and that's really the story of the match.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Like I said, the US team just looked leggy. Like, they put in a lot of work to get through the group stage, and even in those group stage games, Karl, they looked like they were getting tired around the hour mark in each of the games. Berhalter, we've talked about him a couple of times. It's very clear he's not a very good manager. And, to bring Ferreira in, who hasn't started a game to this point in the World Cup, just bring him in and throw him into the team, was a bizarre decision. Why not play someone like Haji Wright, who'd already started a game? Why not go with a Gio Reyna? Like, what's the fear of putting Tim Weah through the middle? Why not start Aronson? He's just been stuck with the same rotation of players over and over and over again. And there's a lot of players in that US squad that have come to this World Cup and just kicked their heels. And I noticed in his post-match interview, Walker Zimmerman made comment of the players that had not kicked a ball. And that was quite unusual to me. And he talked about the great spirit in the squad and, how much he'd take from seeing the support from those players. But he emphasized a couple of times that didn't see the field. And that to me seemed like maybe a bit of a dig at the manager, like you could have used more of the squad. I think the US, it's a young squad. That midfield is very promising. I think if you swap McKennie out for Aronson, I think you can change the dynamic of that midfield and make yourself more creative and adventurous. We both love what Gio Reyna could become if he can stay fit. So if it's him and Pulisic as the wide options, that's going to be really exciting. The fullbacks are what they are, but they've got decent young ones coming through. The questions for them, are any of their goalkeepers actually any good? I couldn't tell you. And can they produce decent centre-backs in time for the next World Cup? They've got a couple of promising young ones. Can they develop them? But obviously the biggest question will remain, can they find someone to score goals? Can Pepe develop? Can they convince Fowler and Balogun to come across? Do you think the US in 4 years could be a bit more of a force?
Yeah, they can, and they should be. I think that they're in the position of quite a few other nations that we've mentioned at this World Cup, to be honest. Ghana being, an obvious one. Canada as well, we've spoken about. They have real potential. They've got to bring the next generation along who have already started here, but also find a few more key pieces along the way. And I think for the USA, most importantly, is that they find the right coach to oversee that regeneration and progression. It's no good them, just blindly plodding along with Berhalter for 2 years, who maybe will use the same group and maybe will improve them a little bit and improve himself, but is not really of the maximum level, let's say, to really take advantage of the quality that they have, that they obviously have. And I think it would be a shame if he was allowed to maybe not, necessarily be sacked straight away, but if you're not going to give the World Cup coach, let's say, at least 2 years of preparation, I think it's going to be a missed opportunity. I really do. So maybe getting through to the knockouts was enough for him not to outright lose his job, but there has to be real progression in the next 12 months, let's say, of playing style, of finding who you want to be your reference point of attack, maybe of integrating a couple of key players who, like you say, haven't really featured enough. I don't think Brendan Aronson's played anywhere near enough.
No.
He's been really, really good in the Premier League this season. Is a player who could have brought a lot of energy and a lot of mobility to that team. I mean, they went to more or less 4-2-3-1 in the latter stages of the game. Why did we not see it before at any point?
Yeah.
The midfield, you mentioned the rotations that he was using like a very narrow pool of players, basically, but the midfield didn't change at all. And all the emphasis is on them, both defensively and offensively. That was really poor management, I thought.
I thought Tim Weah had an okay World Cup, but nothing more than that. And I'm really not sure how he's a nailed-on starter over someone like Aronson. Because Aronson is, like you said, he's playing really well week in, week out in the Premier League. Tim Weah has been a complete flop at Lyon. He's got 8 goals in 81 games. He was a flop with Celtic. Tim Weah has been living off potential and promise since about 2018. And he's shown nothing in the last 4 years to warrant being a definite starter. Now, I think he's got talent, but he's not of the level of the French league. He needs to go and play in Belgium or the Netherlands or somewhere for a few years and try and develop that way, where he can be one of the best players, and maybe that suits him more. But, like a player like him keeping out someone like Aronson, or an exceptional talent like Gio Reyna, who I know there's injury issues with, but he might just be the most talented player you've got, full stop. And yet he's getting 7 minutes here, 10 minutes there. That's not enough. Moving on then to the second game, and we learn that the Netherlands will face Argentina in the quarterfinals. Argentina 2-1 winners over Australia. Leo Messi scores on 35 minutes. Julian Alvarez makes it 2 on 57 minutes after a bit of a howler by Matt Ryan. Then, Karl, when Argentina had looked so comfortable to that point, they made a raft of substitutions. The Aussies made some substitutions, and the game shifted completely. Australia got back into it with what was credited as an own goal to Enzo Fernandez, but it's a shot on goal that hits Fernandez and loops across to the other side. And while they did threaten to go 3-1 up on the counter-attack a couple of times, and Lautaro Martinez missed a couple of sitters, the Argentines did start to wobble at the back, and they looked quite vulnerable.
Yeah, I think we saw here the two things, actually. The emotional side of this Argentina team, in that they do well in adversity to a point, but then also seem to almost embrace it and welcome it and think that they have to really, I'm not really sure what, let's say, like they have to be throwing their bodies on the line instead of just managing the situation a bit better. Like for about the last, well, from 2-1 basically out of nothing, it was all of a sudden like everybody has to be flying into every single challenge to make a block and all this. There was no need for it. Just win the ball back once, be in shape, force Australia to break you down instead of like actively creating gaps by flying into every challenge. Sit in your shape, wait until you got the ball, and then go back to what you were doing in the first half. Pass it and don't let them get it. I don't understand this quite crazy need to be like last ditch about everything that they have. Even the finishing, like Lautaro Martinez has had an absolutely shocking World Cup. There's no two ways about it. And this was just a continuation of bad confidence and a bad moment for him. Fine, but it kind of stretched to other people as well in like some of the last passes, some of the build-up play, some of the fact that the wing backs who had come on by that point were still trying to like beat the man and get across into the near post. Just turn back and keep the ball. There's 5 minutes left in a World Cup knockout match. There was no need for it at all. And then Karl almost obviously got an equaliser there. It was only really the two Martinez's, Emi and Lisandro, made a really good block on Behic, who transformed just for 1 minute into Messi himself. Really weird dynamic to this game, but I do think that a lot of this, aside from the Argentinian mentality, is the fact that basically we don't really know how good they are yet. They haven't really come up against a very, very tough match yet, which is an odd thing to say considering they've already lost, but they haven't had a really tough match yet.
No, I mean, Poland are average, Mexico are average, Saudi Arabia are average, and Australia are average. Just credit to the Aussies.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia are those four teams, the team who attack the most, and they are not that good at attacking, basically.
No, they're not. And they're also the team that were the most aggressive with their defensive setup. They didn't invite Messi to dribble 25 yards into their half. They just stepped up onto the halfway line and caught him offside and caught the rest of them offside time and time again. I will give the Aussies credit. Like, I thought they really did throw the kitchen sink for the last 15 minutes and the stoppage time, obviously. So it was good to see they didn't let their heads drop when they went 2-0 down. You're right about this Argentina team. They're just a very strange collective of players. If you were putting together a team, I don't know that Julian Alvarez on one side, Papu Gomez on the other would be how you'd flank Leo Messi. I really like the midfield three that started, DePaul, Fernandez, and McAllister. I'd like maybe a bit more ball winning in there, but they keep the ball unbelievably well. Like, they're very, very patient, very, very smart. Since he's come into this team, Enzo Fernandez has made them massively better. The same goes for Alexis. Like, those two lads have made a huge difference to the mindset of this team in terms of just taking care of the football. It was largely when McAllister got taken off that they started to get a little bit ropey, because Palacios came on and he just looked like he couldn't quite catch up to the pace of the game. He was playing really advanced as well. He had 2 shots on the edge of the Australian box. He's a holding midfielder. Why is he that far forward? It's going to be a bigger test, obviously, next time out against the Dutch. But even at that, like, the Dutch aren't a team that are going to scare Argentina. If you were Argentinian right now, would you be confident of a place in the semi-final?
If I was Argentinian, I'd probably be assuming that I've already won the final. So
Well, that's a fair point.
That's kind of what they are, the fans as well as the team, isn't it? You know, they're here for one thing only, and either it will be the greatest occasion of their lives, or it will be utter despair and desolation, and that's how they approach the football.
And I'm on board with that.
Yeah, why not? That's why we're moving to Uruguay, right? After all,
that's exactly it. Win or just don't bother. Simple as that. There was the moment we've been waiting for, where Otamendi would Otamendi, and it almost happened today. He left just not quite enough on a back pass. And if not for Emi Martinez getting very quickly out off his line, he would have been in bother. Look, we expected them to win.
Yeah, this is Nicolas Otamendi of the assist. Let's remember to mention.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be fair, when the Aussies got really desperate and threw Harry Souttar up front and just started launching balls into the box, I did think Otamendi and Romero did really well to repel everything in the air. And Lisandro Martinez then was kind of just sweeping up in behind them. And like you highlighted, made that outstanding block. I mean, that's going in otherwise. Emi Martinez's late save is probably the save of the tournament so far. But you know what I found interesting? So the ball breaks to Karl, future Newcastle player, and he swivels on it and shoots. Now he's 8-9 yards out. You would want him to swivel on it and shoot. The Aussie player who's coming in from the right hand side is screaming at him to pass the ball. Like, why did he ever think he was going to get the ball in that situation? No forward player is going to, with 3 yards of space, not swivel and take that shot.
Judging by the Australian shots which came beforehand in the game, you wouldn't want them to either.
No.
Including the goal, which was probably landing back in Melbourne.
It depends on which way the stadium is angled. It may have been heading our direction otherwise, but yeah, it definitely wasn't going in. That's for absolute certainty. Right, so we get Netherlands versus Argentina in the quarterfinals. That game will take place on Friday, the 9th of December at 7 p.m. It'll be the later game that day, which means that the early game that day, the 3 p.m. kickoff, will be held between the teams playing tomorrow. So the first game tomorrow is France versus Poland. Obviously, France came through their group. They did lose their last game, but they'd already qualified and had rotated basically everybody. Poland weren't very impressive, let's be honest. It struggled against Mexico. Probably should have won the game because they missed the penalty. They beat Saudi Arabia, but they could very easily have been a couple of goals behind before they really got going in that game. And then Argentina beat them. They came through on the basis of Mexico having conceded one goal less. Am I right in thinking that it was conceded one goal more? Is that why Mexico went out? Because they conceded 3 and Poland conceded 2? I think I'm right in saying that's what it is. What do you make of France versus Poland? Because I don't see anything other than a French win.
I don't, and I'll be honest, this is out of the round of 16 games, the one I am comfortably looking forward to least. Poland went through on goal difference in the end, didn't they? Because there was a 2-1 in the end for Mexico. They won instead of 2-1.
Because Mexico were chasing trying to get the third goal because they would have gone out on yellow cards otherwise.
Yeah. So Poland have been dismal. I really dislike the way that Poland set up and play under this coach. They have much, much more talented players than they actually utilise. It's a World Cup knockout game, so lots of things could happen, like, a shock early goal or one or two players choke or whatever it is. But would you really expect that from France or the French squad? I wouldn't. Would you really expect Poland to do anything other than sit back to start the match? I don't. So honestly, this is definitely the game, the tie that I'm looking forward to least. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the most predictable of them all as well. And so therefore, I'm going to predict exactly what we would expect to be predicted at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the ones that were played today, and then what comes afterwards. You're right. It is the least appealing of the 8 games. It is the one that appears least likely to spring a surprise. I mean, there's a world in which I can see Switzerland beating Portugal. As unlikely as it sounds, I can see South Korea causing Brazil quite a few problems. Morocco, Spain, I think, is close to a toss-up. I think Japan, Croatia is quite a toss-up, especially considering Japan want you to have all of the ball, and then they're going to murder you on counterattacks. I'd be interested to see, can they get into single-digit possession for this game and manage to win it? England, Senegal, I mean, that's a toss-up as well. England will be favourites, but, Senegal will be dangerous.
But I mean,
you could easily have seen Argentina losing today, having lost to Saudi Arabia, and the same with USA. But this one, I just don't see how Poland win.
No, and I mean, even if there is like a favourite in any of the rounds, that's fine. Like you expect it at different times, but either the matchups, you can see that there's something tactical which is quite interesting to watch, or you're particularly interested in a couple of players and how they're going to tie up or face up against the biggest rivals of the other team or anything like that. But honestly, this is just Poland's low block trying to stop France and Kylian Mbappe scoring a goal. That's what I expect this to be for large stretches of the game. Obviously, there will be some periods, I assume, where whoever it is, Zielinski or Szymanski or someone like that, is going to try and get up alongside Lewandowski. But I mean, he's been so isolated all the way through the group stage. I don't expect that to change against France of all teams. And quite honestly, if France score an early goal, that could be the best thing for this match. If they breach that,
because the Poles have to open up.
Yeah, they have to do something different at the very least. So personally, that's what I'll be keeping my fingers crossed for. Maybe they come out with some surprise tactic or a change of shape or something like that, but I don't expect it.
No, neither do I. I think the biggest question mark for France is who starts at centre back tomorrow. I think everything else just will fall into place. I think they're the better team. They've got the better players. They've got the best individual on the pitch. They've got the most in-form individual on the pitch. They've also got the most in-form centre-back, arguably, in the entire competition. He might not even start for them. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that we're both expecting France win. We might as well just do the prediction now. You go first.
I'm going to do what I want rather than what I hope or what I think. I'm going to go for 4-0 France, and maybe it'll teach Poland a lesson to stop being so defensive.
I was going to go for 3, and I'll go for 3 because, yeah, I think the same kind of thing. I don't enjoy watching teams that do what Poland are doing in a World Cup. And to know, like, the Poles' plan for tomorrow is going to be, let's try and get this to extra time. And if we can nick a win, we'll nick a win, but we'll back ourselves to beat them on penalties because they might not be the strongest mentally, but we believe in ourselves. That's their game plan for tomorrow. And I'd quite like to see them get their bottom smacked. So, yeah, 3-0 to France, and you've got 4-0. In the later game, to find out who will play France in the quarterfinal, it is England versus Senegal. Now, obviously, England topped their group. They destroyed Iran, struggled a bit against America, but got a point. And then they struggled in the first half against Wales. But, Rashford scored, Foden scored, Rashford scored again. Danny Ward showed himself to be a true Englishman with his performance. And England came through without a scratch, really. Senegal, maybe a little bit fortunate to come through the group, but stepped up big when it was needed. Koulibaly came up big when his country needed him. Got them the win against Ecuador, having beaten Qatar and lost to the Dutch. Karl, I think this could be a very good game, depending on what Southgate does. If he goes with the back 4, if he goes with the Rice, Bellingham double pivot with either Mount or Foden, Sterling, Saka and Kane, I could see it being quite an open, entertaining game. But I have this nagging thought in the back of my mind that Kyle Walker is starting, England are playing a back 3, and that Calvin Phillips or Jordan Henderson is going to start. in next to Declan Rice in what will be basically a back seven with three in attack?
I do think one of Phillips or Henderson will start. I don't think Mason Mount has been good enough to play, basically. Not really been used in the best way, in my opinion, but also other attackers are just in better form and more confident mood at the minute. So not the end of the world. What the real thing about that is that it frees up Bellingham a little bit more to go forward, which I'm fully on board with, as long as, like you say, it isn't the back three. I think it'll be still a back four for this game, personally. Assuming England go through and France go through, then you would expect certainly a return to the back three against them. But I think for this one, just given how many options he has for that front line, I think he'll stick with the 4-3-3 for now. I think it would be a little bit of a negative signal if they went to a back three, just because of, like you say, that midfield. A back three isn't a defensive system inherently, but it's the way England play it. It's the fact that
it's the Southgate back three is a very negative setup. Yeah,
it's very deep central midfield pivot which stays in front behind the ball all the time. The front three kind of have to do their own thing, supported by the wing backs, but they're not forwards like the old Dortmund ones would have been when it was Meunier and Guerrero at the best, or Hakimi and Guerrero, say. They're very much fullbacks who get forward in support, sort of thing. So I think England will stay 4-3-3 for this one, at least to start with. Maybe later in the game, if they go ahead, want to try and shut it down, that kind of thing, then maybe I see the switch there. But looking at the Senegal side, I think where I've seen the biggest weaknesses from them would be at right back. I think Sabali has struggled a little bit defensively.
No, he's awful, Karl. The guy can't kick a ball. He can't run. I think doesn't look like a footballer to me. I don't know that he's not the coach's son.
I don't know, but he has such a high starting position, I think, is the real thing. And whoever starts left side for England, whether it's Sterling or Rashford, Foden maybe, they're just going to play so much higher that it's either going to expose him every single time and he just stays high and go 2v1 against Koulibaly all the time, or else force him all the way back, which takes out a lot of the attacking shape that they've had, the build-up play that they've had. He doesn't really contribute a lot in the final third, because like you say, his one-touch passing or his combination plays, they're not particularly good, but he does hold that position out wide, which means either Njah or Sa or whoever they've started on that side are able to play a lot more narrow, a lot closer to Boulaye Dia through the middle, and it does give them a bit more of a presence up front. That's really how they overwhelmed Ecuador in spells of the match, I would say. So leaving three up front is quite important, I think, and leaving three in midfield to try and overwhelm them, because Senegal were basically 4-4-2 for a lot of that latter stage of the group after that first game, really. Even when it was Idrissa Gana Gueye basically playing as a number 10, he wasn't dropping into midfield off the ball. He was staying up alongside the forward. Not very effectively, but that's the position that he was taking up. So I think staying at 4-3-3 is just a very sensible thing for England to do, both defensively and offensively, to be honest.
Now, I think I'm right in saying that Idrissa Gana Gueye is suspended for tomorrow's game. So that will require a bit of a change for the Senegalese. They obviously made some changes in that last game. Obviously the injury to Cheikh Kouyaté was part of it, but they went with Pape Gueye and Pathé Ciss in midfield, and I thought the two of them together were just a lot more dynamic than what we'd seen from Mendy and Kouyaté and Idrissa Gueye when he was playing in that role. So I'll be curious to see what he does. I wonder, could he potentially look to play Nampali's Mendy in that number 10 role? He's not particularly good in the ball, but for the same type of thing, Idrissa Gueye gives you that ability to press high and try and win the ball back high up the pitch. Maybe he does that. Maybe he'll play Pape Gueye in that number 10 role and bring Mendy in the midfield role. But he's got options. I mean, Njai looked good the last day. Sarr has grown into the tournament. Gia is good up front. He's got Nicholas Jackson, who I think's very, very good as an option off the bench. He's got Crepin Diaté. He's got options to go with here. And there are players in that squad that can hurt England. And England, England are not the quickest when teams turn them round. So if one England player is out of position, there will be space for the Senegalese to really hurt England. And if it's Henderson and Rice as a double pivot, that's a very slow midfield in front of a slow pair of centre backs. And if there's any space left in between those two lines, that is somewhere Senegal could look to exploit a weakness in the England team.
Yeah, I think transition play, counterattacks, and if they can try and press high from time to time when England are trying to play out, that's definitely where Senegal are going to get in. And I think if they give Crepin Diatta another chance, I think he's someone who can cause quite a lot of damage as well. Even if they play him right side, maybe with Ismail Assar the other, maybe then you play Njai through the middle with Dia, or maybe they'll have to, like you say, play a bit more of a ball-winning option as that higher up player. But if you have, groups of 2 and 3 of them who can just do, not every single time, not relentlessly pressing high, but just at certain times, like if Shaw and Maguire maybe a little bit isolated, or nobody's come short from midfield, if Declan Rice hasn't dropped in to take possession on the turn, that sort of thing. Those are the options where Senegal really can turn it over against England. And like you say, you play one ball in behind with, let's say, Sarr running diagonally. Nobody's catching him in that England backline. Nobody at all. And it can be a little bit rash and reckless from at least 3 of that back 5 if you include the goalkeeper. So there's going to be plenty of chances for Senegal during the game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And just to confirm, Idrissa Gueye was booked against Netherlands and Ecuador, so he is definitely out of this game. We've got a couple of minutes left. Let's focus on England. What are you expecting as a starting 11? So Pickford will be in goal. We know who the centre-backs will be. It will be John Stones. It will be Harry Maguire. Luke Shaw at left back. Declan Rice will be one of the holding midfielders. Harry Kane will start. Raheem Sterling will start. So by my count, that's 7 players, which leaves right back, the second midfield position, number 10 and right wing, open for debate. Now, I think Bukayo Saka's had quite a good World Cup, so I think he probably will start on the right wing. So who do you think is the 10? Do you agree with Saka? And who do you think will be 10, the other sitting midfielder and the right back? Is it Kyle Walker, or does he go back to Trippier? What does he do in midfield?
I noticed Trent doesn't even get a look in at this point.
No, he got his run out in the group stage, and now he can kick his heels again. That's what it will be.
Yeah. I think Kieran Trippier to start. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kyle Walker come on at some point, regardless of score, just to build up more minutes and more match fitness, let's say. Because I do think that if England and France go through, it'll be Walker who starts against France, presumably right of a back 3, but we'll get to that. But either way, I think Trippier to start, Walker to come on at some point. I think Henderson will start in this game as well. So Rice and Henderson and Bellingham as the third, whether that's as a 8 with Henderson or more of a double pivot and Bellingham able to be more of a 10, which would be my preference. Not as a standing still roaming in the attacking line 10, but basically someone who can do what he wants, a box to box with the protection behind him that 2 are going to sit in. So maybe a 3 out of possession and basically a double pivot sit, and Bellingham does what he wants when England do have the ball. I don't know that it's absolutely nailed on Sterling starts. I think he will, personally, but there's definitely a lot of discussion in a lot of the England media who are out there at the moment over whether it will be Rashford comes in for Sterling or Rashford comes in for Saka. So I personally think that Sterling will start because it's Southgate and the whole loyalty and sticking by the team who've done so well for him and all the rest of it. So I'm with you. I think Sterling starts, but he might not. Kane will start, and then I think Rashford comes in for Saka personally.
Oh, interesting. If he does that, I think he's better off playing Raheem on the right rather than on the left, because Rashford to me is much more effective off the left. The only thing I could see is that he's very good at coming in on the back post, and if he can get some sort of cross-field connection with Luke Shaw, who delivers a good ball from the left-back position over to the far side, then maybe that's beneficial. But likewise, Trippier's a good crosser of the ball, so you could get him coming in from the left side either. I think he'll start Sterling because, like you said, he's one of the the made men in this England squad, for want of a better term. He's somebody that has performed in major tournaments for England. Now, I know he got slated after the last World Cup, but it wasn't like he was terrible. And it wasn't like he shit the bed the way Harry Kane shit the bed a couple of times. He was England's best player by a country mile at the Euros. So I think Southgate will reward him for that, even though he's obviously not in particularly good form. But this form, if form goes out the window with Southgate, I mean, if it was based on form and, how you're doing for your club side, it would be two different centre-backs. It would be a different left-back. Jordan Henderson wouldn't be in the squad. And Phil Foden would probably be the first name on the team sheet because he's been outrageously good for City. It's funny to think that we're talking about wide positions and the three names that you mentioned were Rashford, Sterling and Saka, and not Phil Foden, who for me is probably the most talented player in the England squad. Maybe after Kane, but maybe above Kane.
Yeah, no question. Nobody has the talent, the on-the-ball talent that Foden has, but I don't think very many of them either have his, appreciation of space and his ability to pick up balls in dangerous areas. But I also do think that for this specific game, given how Senegal's fullbacks play, it's fair enough to not start Grealish. Grealish. Yes, it is fair enough to not start Grealish. So I was reading his name there. It's fair enough to not start Foden, just because I think that Saka or Rashford and then Sterling are going to be much more direct running in behind the defence. And for their fullbacks, I think Jacobs has had a pretty good tournament since he came in at left back, but he is a left back who stays at left back. He doesn't really tuck in as much so far on the couple of group games that he started. It's very much a handover to Jallo. I think that the runners in behind Kane are going to be quite important for England in this match. And Savali, we've already discussed on the other side of the pitch. So if Foden is much more there, come short, come deep, pick up possession, create things, 1-2s, and then get behind, then you're looking at maybe Rashford as the one who's just going to run straight in behind for the passes from deep, for a quick ball around the corner from Kane, something like that. I think for the start of this game, I definitely would be inclined to go with two of those kind of players instead.
Go with pace and try and stretch them out. You could always tell Phil Foden that it's actually James Milner in disguise and the game is at Anfield. And he might throw his mind back to last season when he absolutely tortured James Milner by just running in behind him all game long. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Phil Foden will start. I think if he is to start, it would likely mean Henderson wasn't starting and Bellingham was playing in central midfield and Foden was the 10. But I don't see Southgate being brave enough to go with something like that, because that would basically be playing 5 attacking players and 5 defensive players, and he's just not going to do that kind of thing. Right, prediction then.
2-1 to England.
I'm going to go for an England win. I'm going to go 3-2 for England, and I'm going to say it happens after extra time, because, Karl, this is game 4 of this World Cup, and Jordan Pickford has not yet Jordan Pickford. Harry Maguire has not yet Harry Maguire, and John Stones is always capable of an old Rick. So I just think one of England's triangle there,
rock steady triangle,
I think one of them will cost England a goal at some point tomorrow. And I can see Senegal getting another goal from somewhere, from their own creativity. But I think England will win. I think there's no question England is a better team. If England had a football manager that was in possession of a set of testicles, I think they'd wipe the floor with Senegal, and I'd back them to go pretty close to toe with France. But Southgate will be restrained because he's Gareth Southgate. So I'll go 3-2 after extra time. Right, what have you got for the good people to throw their eyes on?
Today, I did a lovely piece on Argentina, a little bit actually building on what I was just speaking about before in the podcast, that we're not really sure how good they are because they've not been massively challenged. But then looking at a little bit of the changes Scaloni has made since the opening group stage game, the midfield ones that you've alluded to there earlier on, but also I think Julian Alvarez coming into the side has given them a bit of something extra that they very much needed and need more of it, basically, because I think Netherlands, from a certainly from a tactical standpoint, but also from a technical one. They're going to give them by a million miles the biggest test that they've had in both halves of the pitch. And like I said, I'm not really sure quite how good this Argentina side are yet. So more to come, more to learn.
I think that's very fair. And that'll do us. We will be back on Monday. Karl will not be with us. It will be myself and young Drinkle. And then Karl will return for normal service on Tuesday. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.